Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm so happy you're back here with me. We are in a hotel. We're visiting family for the holidays. And if you are in the US experiencing American Thanksgiving, or maybe you're somewhere else around the world and other holidays are happening or family gatherings, and you want to meet with your parts around just listening to them and their concerns and creating a self-led plan as you meet with family who can be especially big activators and tormentors for our system. If you want to have me lead you through an exercise to kind of create that self-led plan, go on YouTube, go to under play, no, not playlist, sorry, go under lives, because it's actually the only live I've ever done on YouTube was exactly a year ago, to help just listen to parts and create a self-led plan around the holidays. So it could be around family, or it could be around just traditions that you do or don't want to follow, honoring your own capacity around the holidays, all kinds of things. So go check that out under lives. It's the only one there. And today I'm very excited to teach you about or present a video about, can I trust myself? And I love this question because I remember when I started connecting to my own inner wisdom, to my body and my emotions and my intuition and my capital S self, and just wanting people to know you can trust yourself. You've been taught that you can't trust yourself, but you can. And people coming back and saying, no, I can't. I can't trust myself. If left to my own devices, I will scroll on social media all day. I will, um, eat a whole gallon of ice cream. I will have road rage, and of course, those of you familiar with IFS can hear that those are firefighter parts, right? And so it makes sense to me that they're saying, I can't trust my extreme protective parts to do things that value myself and other people, right? So everybody makes sense. So it really has to do with, what do we mean when we say self, right? I trust myself? So I made a handy dandy PowerPoint and I'm excited to share it with you. Let's see. I think this is it. Yes. Um, I made this and this PowerPoint, and I thought this really encapsulates almost everything that has helped me and that I teach. And it could even be an outline for a course or a book or something, because I'm just going to go over things relatively on a surface level today. But in the sensitively self-led support group coming up at the first Friday of December, we're going to go into depth about listening to our body compass and our emotional guidance system. So those of you in that group, we'll go into more depth about that then. But okay, can I trust myself? I liked this image because even though many people, if not most people, don't understand the natural multiplicity of our psyches, just when we say me, myself, and I, right? It has that sense of there's at least three in there, and they're causing chaos. Okay, so can I trust myself? Who am I, right? What do I mean with I? What do I mean with self? So I feel like understanding multiplicity is really key here. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. So when there's an assumption of a mono mind, I or myself can refer to so many different things, and everything's all lumped together, right? And that's why it feels so confusing. Sometimes I can trust myself, sometimes I can, I don't know. But even with that statement, can I trust myself? There's two, right? It sounds like there's two separate things, right? If one is trusting the other, there's relationship. So there's at least two. Who is I and who is myself? So even in the question, there's some multiplicity inherent in it. So when we understand that we have many different parts with various protective agendas and manifestations physically, mentally, and emotionally, as well as a wise and loving core self, with a capital S, which we'll talk more about um, as it's defined in internal family systems. But we then can specify the nuance of who we are referring to when we say I or myself. So the first question is, can I trust my burdened parts? Here are my answers. I can trust my burdened parts to show up in rather predictable ways, to push me to be perfect, to berate me inside, to fawn, to shut down, to pull me toward numbing behavior, to lash out at others, to suppress parts with painful emotions, etc., in an effort to protect me. So I can trust my burdened parts to do their job, to do what they do, to be burdened, to be extreme. Um, the burdens of our protective parts are their jobs and their roles. Like I listed some of them here. And I can trust that they're going to do that, do what they do. And our exiled parts, or our more vulnerable parts, their burdens are their extreme emotions and their extreme beliefs. And so when things in my environment activate those parts, I can trust that they are going to feel big emotion and that they're going to suffer from their burdens of painful beliefs. So I can trust them. I can trust parts to part, right? To be themselves. And I can trust the parts in other people to be parts and to protect them and not necessarily me, right? And I trust my parts to protect me. Doesn't mean they always value me or are doing things that are good for me, but they're trying in their own way to protect me. I can also trust my intellectual parts. Usually the parts that are kind of up in the head are the ones that hold all the socially conditioned shoulds and rules and logic and reason, and they do all this analyzing and thinking and remembering of all the rules to keep us safe. And I can trust them again to do that job. I can trust my fearful parts to act in extreme ways. It's like what's coming to my mind is the Maya Angelou quote of, when someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? When our parts do these extreme things, rather than being shocked, you say, oh, yeah, that's what they do. They can't stop doing it until what they protect is healed, right? I cannot, this is where people are saying, I can't trust myself. I cannot trust my burden parts to have a full, wide perspective. They have a very limited perspective, usually black and white. I can't trust them to be updated about my current life. I can't trust them to be connected to all my bodily and emotional wisdom. They often will try to suppress that. I can't necessarily trust them to value myself or others. Like I said, they're trying to protect me in certain ways, but there can be collateral damage around that, especially a firefighter, right, who's binging on substances or food or alcohol or raging is ultimately not going to benefit me in my relationships, and it's definitely not valuing or benefiting those around me, right? So even though those parts are trying to protect me, have good intentions, they can have negative impact and cannot be trusted essentially to have positive impact for me and for other people. Okay. I can trust my body. Now, this is super controversial in systems that promote centralized authority, essentially authoritarianism. Any system that says, whether it's religion, education, government, criminal justice, family, parenting systems, that says that a person is bad at their core, right? That they're essentially sinful and their natural inclination is to wreak havoc and to be selfish and awful. When a system or a person, anybody, believes that, they often then believe that the way to manage that, this really promotes managers, is to have some kind of centralized authority, whether it's the parent, the teacher, the governor, the policeman, the priest or pastor, right? And you have to have this higher centralized authority to punish and shame and reward and control and get you to do the right thing. So that's why in many cultures, managers are really elevated because it's their best bet at how to get people to do the right thing. And it's interesting because in my opinion, it's a cycle. When a person doesn't think they can trust themselves or their body, they end up suppressing their own bodily signals, and then they act out or have outbursts of they have illnesses, they have all kinds of things from not listening to their body, but they're also more easily controlled by other people because they don't have their own will or their own connection to their own wisdom if they don't have connection to their body. So then they can be controlled by the puppeteers, right? So returning to our own authority, to our own freedom, part of that is reconnecting to our body. And so let me go through this. My body lets me know when it's out of balance or has unmet needs. And this is just purely physical, right? Through symptoms, through pain. A lot of times people try to medicate the symptoms away, suppress them, get rid of them. And that's really seriously like shooting the fire alarm to get it to stop going off rather than dealing with the flames and putting out the flames and figuring out what's at the root of the pain, because the pain and the symptom is telling you, look deeper, look for the root, solve the underlying problem, and then I won't be in pain anymore. But if we just suppress and medicate and try to get rid of the pain, we're just getting rid of the messenger, and it's leads to a lot more problems. My body gives an attraction response toward things that are life-giving for me and an aversion response toward things that are life-sucking. So I've talked about this before, but essentially, if you have a petri dish with a single living cell in the middle of it, and you put a source of nutrition, of food, on the petri dish, the single living cell will move toward the food, toward the nutrition. If you put a pathogen in the petri dish, that single living cell will move away from the pathogen. So it's this very basic instinct that we have as living beings to move toward what is life-giving and away from what is not, right? So on a very physical bodily level, if we and when we tap into our body, our decisions can be very quick. We can watch the thing in front of us and go, does my body move toward and open up and have curiosity and delight? Or does my body contract the muscles and move backward and kind of have disgust, right? You can watch the subtle difference of that. Sometimes it's just, right? But as we watch our natural bodily response and we begin experimenting with going with it, because there's lots of parts that will cut us off from it. We'll come up here with our intellectual parts that say, well, I should want this, I shouldn't want that. But we're not actually listening to what our body wants or doesn't want. When people say, left to my own devices, I can't trust myself because I will eat a gallon of ice cream. I challenge them. I say, I get that you have a part that binges and tries to protect you in that way. But if you drop into your body and there's a whole gallon of ice cream in front of you, and because when we drop into our body, we have to be present in this moment, not in the past or in the future, right? So that gallon of ice cream is in front of us, and we just watch our body. Does our body go, or does our body go, right? What I think most people will find is their body might go for a good portion of ice cream, right? But after a certain portion, if we're connected and present, we'll go, I'm full, I'm done. And there will be a natural inclination to say no after a little bit. And if we're actually listening to our body will tell us that, right? It's our parts that are burdened that disconnect us from our body in lots of different ways. Um, so yeah, we can find out. Someone was asking recently, what do you mean when you say life-giving, right? It really means that our body moves toward it in this way of either fascination, delight, nutrition, right? Just like that single cell moves toward things that are nutritious and lead toward our well-being, right? Our thriving physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When we move toward those things, we feel alive, right? We feel, ooh, I want to explore this. Oh, I can't wait to do that. Right? That's what's life-giving. When we have parts who push us to do things out of obligation or I should do it and we really don't want to, like that's what feels life-sucking to us, right? We're stressed, we're doing things other people want us to do, too many things in a small amount of time. We're pushing our bodies beyond their capacity. And when I say we, it's well-meaning parts that do that, right? Um, but there are consequences to it. Okay. So I said I often need to drop from my intellectual parts that are kind of up here into my body, or meet the concerns of all those socialized parts in order for them to allow me to listen to my body's valuable messages. Again, we may have parts have been conditioned over and over, religiously or otherwise. You cannot trust your body. Your body's your enemy. Your body is failing you. I remember when I first began kind of changing that programming, uh, it was just by using mantras, right? And I began saying this mantra every morning that my body is for me. My body is a natural healer. My body moves toward what is life-giving for me. And when I first started saying it, I didn't believe it. I just was saying it. But I chose to say it because there was something deep in me that did believe it, which was myself, my capital S self. And as I began saying it more and more, I began seeing the evidence of it more and more and more. And then my parts began to come along and say, okay, maybe there's some truth to this, right? So if you have parts who don't believe that your body's trustworthy, they need to experience it. So just propose little experiments like, what if I start listening to attraction or aversion response on very small stakes things like, what am I going to wear today? Right? You can put two pairs of pants in front of you and just watch which one your body moves toward. It might be fairly equal, and then you can choose either one, right? But I began seeing that, pants with an elastic waistband that didn't constrict my belly, my body would go, ah, and any kind of like tight pant or constricting pant, my body would go, So I began constantly choosing comfortable clothing, right? And making that choice because my body started telling me that. And that was a fairly low stakes type of thing. Or maybe what you're going to eat for breakfast. And you don't even have to like have the food. You can just imagine it in front of you. Like, I'm going to eat eggs and some eggs and some vegetables, right? And just again, you have to ask your mind to give you space so that you can just watch what your body does because your mind might be like, oh no, that's gross. It's has its own story. But see what your body does, and then maybe you have like a bowl of cereal or something. And again, try to drop out of your mind and come into your body and watch what it wants to eat or not. Sometimes it doesn't want either thing, and you're like, okay, let me think of something else. What about avocado toast? It's like, oh, right. I don't know. So you can just play with it, experiment with it. Okay, I can also trust my emotional guidance system. This is another one. It's gotten such a bad rap and really caused so much havoc, caused people to, when the systems encourage us to suppress our emotions, to demonize our emotions, to shame our emotions, we are in a world of dysfunction. This is why we have a lot of mental health issues, is because we're not listening to our emotions. We're not seeing our emotions as the valuable messengers and teachers that they are. I'm going to tell you exactly what the emotions tell you, and why they're so valuable. But it's just like our body, right? And our emotions are in our body. They are a physical experience. So there's no real disconnect between emotions and our body. But so again, kind of like the attraction, aversion, and response are positive emotions like happiness, delight, curiosity, joy, like all of those things tell us that our needs are being met, that we are moving toward things that are life-giving for our well-being. That's what those positive emotions tell us. And it's very, I try to notice now when I feel those good emotions, I'm like, oh, my needs are being met right now. Right. And I've said in many videos before that there's 9 universal human needs by Manfred Max Neef, and I will go through each one and I'll be so delighted. I'm like, yeah, that's being met. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. That too. Yeah. And I'll see that all my needs are being met. And so I start making the connection. No wonder I feel good right now. Now, the negative emotions like fear, anger, sadness, and disgust just tell me that my needs are not being met or that something in front of me is like the aversion response, right? And they're so valuable in that way because they let me know that something needs my attention. So a lot of people think, oh, if I'm feeling bad all the time, I'm mentally ill, I need help. But if you change your outlook on it, you say, oh, I'm feeling bad right now. That is my emotional guidance system working correctly. There's nothing wrong with me. It's actually very right with me. When I'm feeling all of that repeatedly, it means that I'm going without, there are needs that are unmet continually. Our system will completely freeze and get depressed when we have so many needs unmet. Often, when I'm really, really down and just depressed and feeling a lot of angst, I'll go through those 9 universal needs, and 7 or 8 of them are missing. And I go, no wonder I feel so bad right now. And so that can be, again, really helpful to, oh, thank you, emotions, for letting me know that I have needs that need to be met right now. And when I have explosive emotions like rage or panic, right, when the emotions are just on a 10, I want to look for the TNT, like kind of the root of the explosion underneath. And TNT stands for unhealed trauma, parts that get activated from the present situation, but they're actually stuck in a past situation of trauma. Unmet needs, again, I go through those 9 universal human needs and say, yes, yes, no, that's not met. That's not met. That is, right? And I go through those. Or untrue thoughts, which untrue thoughts are really the burdens that some of our parts hold. And I won't go into huge detail about this, but untrue thoughts are painful because they are not true. So when you identify a painful thought, you can almost be pretty certain that that thought is not true. There is a difference between clean pain and dirty pain. We have clean pain when we have loss and we have grief, and we feel that in the weight of our bodies and the sadness. But when we have dirty pain, it means that the thought we're thinking is not true. Like maybe we're taking responsibility for something that really is not ours, so we feel shame and guilt, or what's the word? Oh my gosh, I'm losing the word, where it's inaccurate guilt. That's not the right word. Anyway, so, oh, I have a part that wants to think of the word. Sorry. If you think of the word, uh, guilt that's not productive. Anyway, it's not accurate. So we might have that, and then, because those thoughts are not true, right? And then we'll have pain and shame and psychological pain around it. Okay. So this is what some of those negative emotions tell us. So when we experience fear, it tells us that there is real or perhaps perceived lack of safety. There's some kind of danger around us. It could be physical or emotional danger, social danger. But that fear tells us that there is a potential, again, real or perceived threat. And that's very valuable information. And then we get curious about it and we check it out and we see, is it real? Is it occurring right now? Or is it in the past? Is there substantial evidence for it or not? we make a decision about it, right? I'm going to move away. I'm going to fight. I'm going to flee. I'm going to fawn. I'm going to freeze, right? And we can use those responses, those parts, very strategically, in a self-led way in this moment to protect us from a real and present danger. Okay, anger tells me that there is an injustice or an unmet need or a crossed boundary, and it really protects that I am valuable. And it says, no, this behavior that this person's doing to me or to my loved ones or to these people who are susceptible or victimized, it's not okay. So it really values us and it really values other people. And so anger is a really helpful emotion to motivate us, to give us energy, to do something about it. And it can be destructive when it comes from burdened parts, but it can also be very constructive and creative from a self-led place. Okay, so sadness tells me that there has been a loss, and and often what it needs is space or rest or comfort. And so it's just letting us know. Usually with sadness, there's nothing to do. There's just a being with and allowing of the sadness. And like I said, space around it to let it be, to let it rest, and perhaps just to comfort it with presence. And then disgust is really that aversion response, right? That tells me that there's something toxic or inauthentic in front of me that is not meant for me, right? And I know that I grew up thinking that my disgust response or my anger response was sinful in itself, that I was a selfish, terrible person if I ever felt like no to somebody. There were people in my life that I felt very, very strong aversion response to, that I ended up being in very close relationship to, because and then experiencing a lot of abuse because I wasn't connected to that aversion response. I just thought that I was a bad person for feeling that, but that was actually a very protective, accurate gauge. And so now I give myself permission. If someone, and it's not just maybe a person in general, it could be, but just a person in that moment and the way they're presenting, maybe their protective parts are acting out and either being harmful to me or my parts are perceiving it as harmful, potentially harmful, I can move away. I can leave the room. I can go to the bathroom. I can create distance and let that disgust response allow me to create distance. If someone gives me some food and my body goes, ooh, I can say no. I thank you, but I don't want to eat that. And listen to my body, which can be hard again because there's could be social consequence to that, but it is worth it. And I've learned that through experimentation. Okay, I can trust my intuition. So access to my intuition comes when my activated parts feel safe enough to relax. So when my parts who kind of have their knee-jerk or automatic responses to things, when I notice them and turn toward them and appreciate them and listen to them, then they relax and I have more access to my intuition, which we'll see that intuition can be synonymous with self-energy. And my natural wisdom emerges at this point when my activated burden parts are able to relax. Natural wisdom emerges and answers come effortlessly and clearly, whether I'm asking my body a question or it's coming from self or all caps self or guides, the universe, love, whether these are all separate sources or really all the same source of just like wisdom and information in the energy realm, I'm able to receive it in an effortless and clear way. I tell people that when I receive information intuitively, it's as if like another person in front of me is just saying it to me or showing me something, and it's very clear. I'm not thinking it up. I didn't have any effort to try to get it. It just came to me and I received it without any effort, and it's very clear. The message is not confused. It's not muddled. It's not, is it this? Is it that? It's yes, it's this. That's how that kind of information feels. And this is important. Intuition does not have the feeling state of fear. That's our burden parts, right? It's calm and clear and confident. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, how do I know if it's my intuition or if I'm just afraid of this thing, right? And so I have this strong sense of like, I got to stay away from that because I'm afraid of it. Now, there can be danger. Your intuition can tell you, like, get away from this or do this thing that's hard to do, but there's still an absolute clarity about it. When I left my first husband the final time, it was a very, very difficult decision. And there were parts that were afraid of it, but there was such clarity that this is the right thing to do for everyone involved. And so there was a moving forward with confidence and clarity around the decision. There was no confusion or muddledness around it. So again, intuition can be synonymous with self-energy, right? As I described the qualities of it, right? It's calm, it's clear, it's confident. So that leads to I can trust my capital S self. My essential self is calm, it is curious, it is clear, has clarity, it's compassionate, confident, courageous, creative, and connected. And again, the bodily state of those qualities, right, is kind of that attraction response. It's calm and it's curious and it's clear and it's compassionate and it's moving toward, it's confident, it has a strong spine, it's courageous, again, moving forward, it's creative, there's flow coming, it's connected to everyone, it has a wide perspective and inclusion. So there's this bodily sense of being in self. Myself is also playful and present in this moment. It is persistent, keeps going, it is patient, and it has a vast perspective. It sees the all and of everything. So when I tap into my self energy, I can trust it completely to make decisions that value me and others. And I give you the 8 C's and the 5 P's because that's how you can really detect, am I in self or not? Does it feel like those qualities? And you can practice the embodied feeling state of that. And so you can recognize it. And again, if you don't feel that way, if you're feeling an aversion response, you're feeling tense in your muscles, you're feeling pulling back, going inward, there's nothing wrong with that. It means that there are parts that need to be listened to. They need their concerns. They're having valuable messages. Those emotions, the bodily sensations, the parts, they have valuable messages around unhealed trauma, unmet needs, and untrue thoughts that need to be listened to so that they can relax and make more and more room for self energy. But as humans, we have all of this all at the same time. So it's not like we can have different amounts of space in our system for self energy, but our parts are always there. And so our self is just interacting with them. And sometimes we have a little bit of self with which to give attention so that the parts can begin to relax and make a little bit more room for self. And then we have more self energy to give to the parts that are the most distressed or most active. And then they can relax and we can settle in a relationship with the two. Okay. I can trust myself to have an all and nuanced point of view, to not be limited to black and white thinking. And I can trust myself to listen to all the parts of me who are activated, to have equanimity and value for them all, to meet their concerns and needs, and to go forward from a place of clarity and creativity. And it's that virtuous cycle I was just describing, even if we have a tiny bit of self energy. And if we don't, we can find self energy surrogates, right? We can know what supports us, essentially our bodies and our minds feeling safe. So that might be going out in nature, putting our feet on the grass. It might be doing some light movement. It might be having a warm blanket and a cup of tea. It might be listening to a certain piece of music or looking at art. It might be connecting to a very safe person for us. Those things, or an animal. So we have those things that help our body feel safe enough to allow for a little bit of self energy with which to give the parts who are active that they can gradually relax and allow more space for self to be in relationship. Okay, so my conclusions, almost done here. When people say, I cannot trust myself, they're usually referring to their burdened parts. Some people may also have been conditioned to not trust their bodies and emotions because this makes them more easily controlled by authorities. When I say, I can trust myself, I'm referring to my essential self, listening to all the valuable input from my parts, my mind, my body, my emotions, and leading from a place of clarity. So I don't mean to, I was going to say, when I say drop from the mind into the body, I don't want to diminish the valuable messages the mind is telling me, because it's telling me, again, it's using reason and analysis, which can be very helpful. And it's using, it knows all the social rules. And there are times when that in the present moment is keeping me safe, right? If I go against the social rule, there's going to be huge consequence here. And being self-led is taking in that information and then making a self-led decision of, am I willing and able to receive the consequence of doing something authentic and what my body's telling me? Or is it too unsafe and I really need to abide by this social rule, put on this mask, or do the thing that I don't want to do, that I feel obligated to do, because I'm making a choice to do that because I don't want to endure the consequence right now. And that might be a choice I make. And my mind is giving me input about that. But when I am just listening to that and not listening to my body and my emotions, I'm overriding my body and my emotions over and over, and I will get mentally and physically ill. So I need the input from all of it, and then myself and intuition making a decision from a place of clarity and confidence and creativity, an intentional choice. So taking all the information. So the way to access this trustworthy self is to find a safe space, like I was saying before, and to be still enough to observe active parts so they can relax and make room for self energy. I really like this idea of the qualities of self kind of building. And the foundation is creating a safe space with in which we can be still, because if we can't be still, it's often because we don't feel safe. So, and it's not even that our bodies have to be completely still, but just allowing a space that feels safe enough, that leads to a natural sense of calm, even just if it's a little place of calm in our body and psyche. Like maybe we have pain all through our body, but we realize my right tip of my pinky finger is calm and doesn't have pain. From that little space, we can offer calm to the parts that are feeling distressed. And so that calm leads to a little bit of curiosity about the parts who are feeling distressed. I'm going to stop sharing. And then once we feel curious and we receive answers from parts, because curiosity is just very open, like I'm listening to you. And then once we receive answers, we have clarity about, this is how you make sense. These are the roots. And as we have clarity, we have compassion toward their good intention, toward the messages they're giving us that are valuable. And so we have compassion and appreciation. And then from that place, now we have, quite a bit of self-energy. We can be self-led and have quite a bit of confidence, right, in that clarity going forward. And we can be courageous, meaning we have more love than fear in our system. We can be courageous we have flow, we begin to feel more creative around problem solving because we have a wider perspective, and we feel connected to all the parts and people outside of us and to nature. And it just that self energy begins to grow, and then we feel more like we can trust ourselves because we are experiencing the actual capital S self energy that is taking in all the information from the parts. That, yes, if one of those parts leads the system, we can't trust it to make a decision that's valuable for us and other people, but we can trust it to have its limited perspective, its black and white perspective, and to do what it normally does. We can trust that. I remember when, last thing I'll say, uh, this is the same thing on the outside. Like, can I trust other people? Right? There was someone in my life that I had parts who continually felt like I have to trust this person because of their relationship to me. But I had other parts that continually had an aversion response, or like, had these experiences. And so my parts said to myself, I just can't trust this person. And myself said, oh, you don't need to. The truth is, you can't trust their parts. When they are blended with their burden parts that are protecting them but acting out toward you, you can trust their parts to be their parts and to hurt you. You can trust their self. And so look for evidence if and when they have self energy, which was very, very rare for this person. But it gave me clarity because I was able to say, okay, I can trust their young or burdened parts to be young and burdened parts and to do things that are harmful to me. But I can also trust that these little glimpses of if and when they're in self energy, I can rest a little bit and feel safe around that. So it's kind of like detecting which is at the forefront for them, and that I don't have to trust their parts to protect me. That would be unreasonable. So I hope that makes sense. Thanks for listening. Um, I hope that you are being very kind to yourself and all your parts, and that you do that until we meet again. And if you've listened to the end, you can put an emoji about that represents to you trust or self, maybe some of these qualities of the body, the emotions, the intuition, the spiritual essential self. I don't know if there's any emojis that represent trust. I don't know. But if you find one, yeah, you can put whatever you'd like that kind of represents what I've talked about today. And please feel free in the comments to ask questions, to write your experience about this. Does what I'm saying resonate with you? And I'd love to hear from you. All right. I will see you next time.